investing to become a millionaire. And there's a URL here that you may want to open on your device or browser and save it because it's kind of useful. And it reads, explain what is meant by stop spending to look like a millionaire and start investing to become one. So the idea here is that a lot of people, especially in, I don't know other countries, but in the United States for sure, people buy all kinds of stuff they don't need. They buy a $5,000-$6,000 watch. They buy a $10,000 handbag, $70,000 car. The big one is the mansion on the hill. And I've seen people buy mansions on the hill and then give themselves heart attacks. Literally, literally, where they're in the hospital and in some cases they're in open heart surgery. So you don't want to, that's probably not recommendable. Rather than buying all this stuff that you don't really need and you can't take with you when you pass away, it's better to invest your money when you're young. It's allowed to grow and multiply exponentially so that in the future you can actually be a millionaire. Okay, that's the idea. And then B reads, using the link above, given your age, how much money would you need to invest now to retire as a millionaire by age 65? What is your strategy given your situation? Okay, so the idea here is that if you want to stay in California, which a lot of you do, you don't have a pension and you don't have Social Security, and you're not working anymore because you're retired, or you can't work right here. You're older and your body's not functioning well, or your mind isn't functioning like it used to, or both. Okay, then you're gonna have to rely on your net worth to make it through the end of your life. And you're probably gonna spend around 20 years in retirement. So you need a very large net worth to do that. Let me see if I can find my calculator. Okay, there's my calculator. Okay, and let's do a little bit of math here. Okay, so let's say you had $1 million at age 65, and that's the age you retire. Right now, full retirement age is now 66 and a half. It used to be 62. When I was a kid growing up, women could retire at 62. And then they changed it to 65 for everybody. And now it's 66 and a half. And they're just going to keep increasing the age for full Social Security disbursements. Because as you probably know, the Social Security system is having some financial problems. So they just keep raising the retirement age, and also people are living longer. So it's kind of a mess because the fund is not in the best of conditions, and people are living longer, so they just keep raising the retirement age. But anyway, so let's say you're 65 and you have $1 million, and that's all you have. You don't have pension, you don't have Social Security, and you need to make it through 20 years of retirement. Okay, and you don't want to run out of money. That would not be good. Okay, so if you're male, they recommend a expenditure rate of 0.4% every year till the end of your life, and you should be okay. Okay, so we multiply by 0.04. That would give you $40,000 a year divided by 12 months. Give you about $3,333 a month every month till the end of your life. And again, this does not take into consideration inflation or unexpected costs that you might incur in the future, right? Including assisted living and long-term care. So this is just using present values and without taking into consideration inflation nor unexpected future expenses that you might run into. But $3,300 a month in California will give you a good life. That's a good life, okay? With $1 million. Now, if you're female, let's go back to $1 million. You can spend your money as quickly because women are living on average about 5 years longer than men. Okay, a little bit less, but let's say 5 years. So the expenditure rate recommended for women is 3%. So we multiply by 0.03, and that would give you 30,000 a year divided by 12 months. That gives you about 2,500 a month to spend every month till the end of your life. And that's pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. It's not as good as 3,300, okay? But it's okay. I think that's okay. 2,500 is okay in California. Okay, so those are your numbers. Okay, so what this tells me is that if you want to have a good life in California as a retired person, if you're male, you could probably get by with a net worth of somewhat below $1 million, maybe $700,000. So you'd probably be okay. Okay, and if you're a woman, you probably need at least $1 million, because 2,500 a month will give you a pretty good lifestyle, but not that great, just pretty good. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so let's find out how much money you need to. Oh, we have a chat. Okay. Oh, land in. Okay, very good. Okie dokie, land. Thank you. Gotcha. Okay. So let's go to this website and find out how much you need to invest every day to retire a millionaire by age 65 with $1 million. Okay. Okie dokie. Keeping in mind that if you're a young man today, you can probably get by on somewhat less than $1 million. I mean, if you're a young woman, you probably need at least $1 million to live a relatively good life from 65 till the happy hunting ground. Everybody goes to the happy hunting ground, unfortunately. This is one of the sad truths of life, or realities of life. Everybody sooner or later goes to the happy hunting ground. When you're young, you don't realize that because not too many people are passing away. But as you get older, your grandparents die, and then your aunts and uncles start to die. And then maybe some of your cousins start to die, and your friends start to die. And you realize, oh boy, everybody's going to the happy hunting ground. But not me, right? Not you or I. I think in our minds, we have this feeling that we're immortal, you know. Maybe that's why many civilizations have the notion of a afterlife, because we don't really want to believe that this life will come to an end. Okay, okay. So here's this is the chart. It's a Business Insider, and Business Insider is a pretty good website. Well, it started as a publication, but now it's a website. Okay, and how much do you need to invest? Save. Let's just save, but really save is not the right word to use. It should be invest, because savings will right now get you nothing. Savings will get you nothing. Some people argue that right now money is trash, which is somewhat true. It's not trash. Money is useful, but with an inflation rate of about 6% nowadays, if you don't invest your money, you just put it in a bank account, savings or checking, you're losing about 5 or 6% of your money every year, which is not favorable for you or me or anyone else. Okay, but anyway, so this table has ages on the y-axis from 20 to 55, and then has a rate of return of 3%, 5%, and 7%. And 3% is kind of a low rate of return, because if inflation is running at around 6%, and you're getting 3% of your money, you're losing about 3% of your money every year. Okay, and right now, last time I saw them, United States Treasury bonds are paying about 3%. Historically, United States Treasury bonds have paid about 5%, but right now, the prime rate is very low, so they're paying around 3%. But it's better than what the banks are giving. The banks are giving you less than 1%. which is horrible for you. And it's good for them. They have financial institutions have in their employment financial analysts who are trained, experienced, and savvy. So those people know how to invest money and get very good returns on the investment. So they're working to make money for the financial institution. The financial institution taking your money and giving you less than 1%. Okay, it's not in your favor, but so be it. Okay, then I mentioned earlier that a 5% return has been the historical average rate of return for United States Treasury bonds. But if you could get good, if you find an investment, gives you 5% rate of return, at least you would be able to avoid inflation, because the estimate for inflation is somewhere between 5 and 6%. So that will at least protect your money from inflation. But it would probably not grow at all. You would just stay flat in terms of your purchasing power. 7% rate of return, from my experience, I would say is California real estate. Not necessarily other states, but California, about 7% rate of return. If you're just a regular home, if you're an investor or a practitioner, as we are, then your rate of return is going to be higher. Historically, we've gotten about a 14% rate of return on our real estate investments, but we have a lot of experience. We've been doing real estate for about 100 years. And so we've learned a few things along the way. And a 7% rate of return will allow you to double your money every 10 years. And a 14% rate of return will allow you to double your money about every 5 years. Okay, but we have 7%, so we got to go with that. Okay, so let's say you are able to find a investment that will give you 7% rate of return, and they are out there. They're out there. You need to look for them up there. You can't find them. And you're 20 years old. Okay, so if you are 20 years old, you can find a investment instrument that will give you a 7% rate of return, and you can invest $9 a day times 30 days, or $207 a month. You should be able to retire a millionaire by the age of 65. Okay. We'll do a few examples. Can't do them all, but we'll do a few examples. I'm trying to figure out where to put the calculator. It's not going to work. Maybe it work. Might work. There we go. Okay. Now, if you wait till age 30, you need to invest $18 a day times 30, and even at minimum wage, that might work, right? Let's do it again. 9 times 30, 270. Whoops. 270. $9 a day times 30 days, $270 a month, every month. Minimum wage full time right now is about $2,000 a month. So if you have after taxes, so if you had an income of $2,000 a month, and you invest $270 every month, you would still have $1,730 a month for your personal expenses, which will give you roughly the life of a student. So it's doable even with minimum wage. If you start at 20 and you're making $2,000 a month, $9 a day invested, you could do it. And you should be able to retire as a millionaire by age 65 with at least $1 million. Okay. Now, if you wait till age 30, now you have to invest $18 a day times 30 days. Now you have to invest $540 a month to retire as a millionaire. At minimum wage, this would probably not work. It might work, but you would have to really live a very limited life to make this work at minimum wage. Okay, If you're a medium wage earner in California, which is probably about 3,000 a month, it would work. It will work. Okay, you can wait till 30. If you're a medium earner making, let's say 3,000 a month, it'll work. Okay, if you wait till age 40, now you have to invest $40 a day times 30 days. You would have to invest $1,200 every month to retire a millionaire. Minimum wage, this will not work, okay? Because that would give you $800 a month for your personal expenses. That will not work, no. If you're a medium earner, let's say making 3,000 a month, I think it would work, but your life would be very limited because you would have about 1,800 a month budget of a student. So you have to live like a student life, okay? And you're 40 years old. I don't know if you want to do that, okay? Maybe not. I would not want to. Okay, if you wait till 55, which is our last row here, you would have to invest $189 a day times 30 days. $5,670 every month. Okay, minimum wage is 2,000. That will not work. Medium wage in California is probably around 3,000. Will not work. Average wages in California after taxes probably about 5,000 a month. Will not work. So what this means is that if you wait till 55, you're not gonna make it. It's impossible. There's no way you could become a millionaire on minimum wage or as a medium earner or even as an average earner in California. You'll not make it because, you know, you need to invest too much money. So the moral of the story here is that you want to start as early as possible. Okay, the sooner you start, the better. And because it's easier. The longer you wait, the more money you need to invest to retire a millionaire. And as we saw earlier, if you don't have a pension or Social Security, you're going to need about $1 million to retire reasonably well and spend maybe about 20 years in retirement before you go to the happy hunting ground. Okay. Happy hunting ground is an expression that Native Americans use. And I'm part Native American, so that's why I use that one. There are other expressions, but I like that one because it sounds happy. Anyway, so there it is. Okay, those numbers. Now, the other thing we need to mention here is that you don't necessarily need to stay in California, okay? Every year, from my readings, about 1 million people are leaving California. And they're leaving California mostly, I think, because they can't make it here anymore. They're older, they're retired, they don't have a job. All they have is Social Security. So they're leaving to other states, especially Texas, Florida, New Mexico, and Arizona. They're not going north, okay? They're not going to New York or Chicago, of course not, where it's freezing cold. They're going to other warm states. But once they get there with their Social Security check, sometimes, in some cases, they realize, okay, this is not a good life either. In California, we had a terrible life with our Social Security check, and we get to Texas or some other state, and it's still pretty bad. And at that point, they decide to leave the United States. They become what are known as expats. They leave the United States, and they go to another country, usually Mexico, and if not Mexico, Costa Rica, or some other country. And because the cost of living in other countries is usually less than in the United States. And we know from our previous discussion that the average per capita GDP in the world is about $11,000 a year. Let's double check that just to make sure we got our numbers correct. Okay. Well, it's 3 times load. I better start the old one too because my tabs go to sleep. If they're not active, they go to sleep and I have to wake them up. Yeah. Well, we've made a lot of progress with technology, but we still have ways to go. First time I used the internet, I think, was 1997. So that was 24 years ago. And it has improved, but could be better. Okay, want this one. But we are impatient, okay? Just think about this. Here we are having a class remotely, which would have been unthinkable 20 years ago. Well, maybe not 20 years, but 30 years ago. It would have been unthinkable. Okay, so I'm trying to find what the world average is, which is about 11,000. I think I just randomly passed it. Maybe not. Where is the world average? There it is. Okay, so here's the world average per capita gross domestic product, which is about $11,000 a year, roughly. Okay, and this is based on data from, as you already know, the International Monetary Fund, the United Nations, and the World Bank. These are very reputable organizations that have well-paid analysts, well-educated, well-trained, well-paid analysts that do this for a living. Okay, so we know that the average person on the planet is not making $1,000 a month. They're making less than $1,000 a month, the average person on the planet. Okay, because this is the gross domestic product, which means they're not making that kind of money. That's what the country is producing. So I think it'd be reasonable to multiply that figure of $11,000 by 0.75 to get a more accurate picture of what the average person on the planet has in terms of income. Okay, and then the average countries are, as we talked before, mid-range countries include Russia, Malaysia, Russia, Costa Rica, China, Iran, and north of the mid-range. And then below the mid-range, Bulgaria, Turkey, Cuba, Mexico, like that. Okay, so these are all considered mid-level countries. Okay, not because they're doing great, okay, but because there are a lot of countries doing worse than this. Okay, some countries doing better, some countries worse than the world average. Okay, so you could potentially relocate to one of these countries, you know, roughly in the middle. And in that case, you would not need $1 million, a net worth of $1 million. You can have a net worth less than that. Okay, so let's do the calculations. Okay, and before we do that, though, most Americans who are relocating to Mexico because, well, they have very good weather, and it's probably one of the most popular cuisines in the world, and the music is very good, the culture is very good, the people are very friendly, and it's close to the United States. So if you have a medical emergency that they cannot solve for you, you could easily get back into the United States to deal with a medical emergency. But we know that people in Mexico are making about, I would say, less than 10,000 a year is the per capita GDP of Mexico. But we also know that the cost of living in most countries is much less than this here. So the question is, that becomes, if you have about, let's say, $9,000 or $10,000 a year to spend, right? Which is, well, people in Mexico don't have that much to spend, okay? But let's just use that as an example. You have $9,000 or $10,000 a year to spend every year for the rest of your life. What quality of life would that give you in a country like Mexico, or any other country? You can use any country, right? You can use Turkey, Argentina, Vietnam, whatever country you want. But I'm using Mexico because that's where most Americans are going. Right now, we estimate that, from my readings, the estimate is that there's somewhere between 1 million and 3 million Americans living in Mexico as expats, and they have no plan to come back. We don't know the exact numbers because oftentimes what happens, Americans get a tourist visa. They go to Mexico and they're tourists with a passport, and they just don't come back. They might come back like for an emergency or some special family event, but they're not going to relocate back to the United States anymore. Okay, so anyway, so the question here is, if you have $9,000 or $10,000 a year to spend every year for the rest of your life, what quality of life will that give you in a country like Mexico? Okay, so let's look at our next list, which is the per capita GDP in terms of purchasing power parity. In other words, in terms of what those $9,000 or $10,000 will get you. Okay, So we know that people in Mexico are making less than $10,000 a year, but what does that mean in terms of the quality of your life or your purchasing power parity in terms of what you can buy, the quality of lifestyle you can get? We look at the world average, even though the the average per capita GDP in the world is about 11,000. When you look at it in terms of purchasing power parity, it's more. It's about 17,000 something more. Okay, because the cost of living in most countries is less than in the rich countries like the United States. The nine or ten, let's say $9 or $10,000 of $20,000 in terms of purchasing power parity, okay, GDP. So it's basically double, right? So one double will get you twice as much in Mexico. It depends on the country, okay? But in this case, we're using Mexico because that's where most Americans are relocating to. And you basically double your purchasing power, okay? So $10,000 is the equivalent of $20,000 here, but in Mexico, okay? So that's why people are relocating to Mexico, Costa Rica, and other countries. Okay, so that means that you don't necessarily need $1 million to live a reasonably good life in another country if you're willing to relocate to another country. So let me see where I can put my calculator. Maybe here. Okay, so now the question becomes, well, okay, what's the minimum? Okay, so let's say you're instead of investing $9 a day every day, starting at age 20, you invest $3 a day, right? And you retire, instead of retiring with $1 million, you retire with $330,000. Let's say 300,000. Let's say you retire with $300,000 because you were not able to invest $9 a day at age 20, but you were able to invest $3 a day, which would be $3 a day times 30. It's about $90 a month. Most people can do that. If you stop buying junk, okay, most people can invest $90 a month. You know, I know I'm guilty of that too. You know, as young, I had no idea about investing, and I bought all kinds of junk. I should have invested that money, but it's a little late. Okay, so let's say you retire with $300,000 a year, and you're male, and we know that the expenditure rate is 4%. So multiplied by 0.4, that would give you $12,000 a year divided by 12 months. That would give you about $1,000 a month, okay, which is roughly, which is more than the average per capita GDP in Mexico. Okay, it's more because it's close to 10,000. You have 12,000. Okay, that means that you should be able to have a better than average life if you relocate to a country like Mexico, right? Because we know from the comparison we just did that $1,000 in Mexico is the equivalent of about $2,000 here. So $2,000 here is not a great life, but it's not a bad life either. It's a little bit better than a student, right? It would be a minimum wage life. $2,000 a month in California would be minimum wage life, which is not great, but it's not so bad, right? And then you could relocate to a country like Mexico or a country that has a lower cost of living with $300,000 net worth, and you should be okay till the end of your life. Okay. Using present values again, and not taking into account the cost of assisted living or the cost of long-term care. We're assuming that you're going to be in good health. Okay. Okay, so that's the calculation. Now, if you're a woman, if you're a female, you probably need a net worth of about 400,000. Okay, and the expenditure rate recommended for women is 0.03. And again, that will give you $12,000 a year divided by 12 months. That would give you about $1,000 to spend every month for the rest of your life. And you should not run out of money. Again, assuming you're in good health, okay? That you don't have some unexpected expenses that like assisted living or long-term care. And we're using Mexico as a comparison point because that's where most Americans are going, but you can use many countries, okay? So you have a big range of countries. Let's see. Let's go back here. Because you have 12,000. So starting, I think that our starting point would be like China would, Costa Rica would be okay. I think China would be okay. Iran might be okay. Iran might be a little bit tough, depending. Let's say China. From China, which is country number 79, we've got about 200 countries, south, down. So China, Costa Rica, Russia is very cold. forget Russia. Bulgaria is not so cold. Turkey would be okay. Cuba is hot and sticky. Mexico is the #1 destination for American expats. Argentina, like that. Okay. As you move down the list of countries in terms of their per capita GDP, your $1,000 a month will get you more money. Okay, it'll give you a higher standard of living, but the conditions in those countries are also become less favorable. And what I mean by that is that as you move down the list of countries in terms of the per capita GDP, the facilities in those countries begin to deteriorate, including the highways, the streets, the sidewalks. Electricity becomes less reliable, the water supply becomes less reliable, like that. Okay, so that depends how far, depends on your choice. Depends what you want to do. Okay, and it's your call. It's your call. I'm just trying to give you a heads up because I know many of you would like to stay in California for the rest of your lives, and that may or may not be possible. Okay, we know that every year about 1 million people are leaving California. That means that they made a decision or a choice to leave California because apparently things are not going well for them here. Okay, so if you don't want that to happen to you, you have to plan ahead now. Okay, next slide.